It was a cold Tuesday morning at Mercy Hill Hospital in downtown Philadelphia. The kind of day where everyone moved quickly, heads down, focused on their routines. Nurses prepped for rounds. The ER was already buzzing by 6:45 a.m. At 7:03 a.m., a woman walked through the hospital's sliding glass doors barefoot, wearing a blood-stained blue hoodie and mismatched jeans. Her right hand was wrapped in gauze, poorly taped, soaked with dried blood. She had no bag, no phone, no ID, just a quiet urgency in her eyes. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She simply walked to the triage desk and said, "I think I need help." The nurse on duty, Erica Mendez, recalled the moment later. She was calm, way too calm for someone who looked like she'd just been in a fight. Or worse. Her voice was steady, but her eyes? They looked like they'd seen something she wasn't ready to say. The woman gave a fake name, Rachel Thomas. She said she'd been mugged near Fairmount Park. She didn't remember the attacker's face. She didn't want to involve the police. She just wanted to get patched up and leave. But something was off. As doctors examined her hand, they noticed the cut was deep, too clean, too deliberate. It looked more like a knife wound than something caused by a struggle or fall. And when a nurse tried to remove her hoodie to check for further injuries, the woman panicked. Security was called. She started pacing the ER waiting area, looking toward the elevators. She asked if patient 613 had been admitted overnight. There was no patient 613. The staff assumed she was confused, maybe high. But then she whispered something to herself over and over. "He said he'd be here. He said he'd be here." Around 7:20 a.m., hospital security reviewed the lobby camera. What they saw contradicted her story completely. She hadn't arrived in distress. She had walked from the side alley entrance, calmly, no one chasing her. She'd thrown something in the trash can by the emergency entrance, something small and shiny. By 7:30 a.m., the Philadelphia Police Department was notified. Detective Lorenzo Reed was the first on the scene. He'd seen a lot in his 12 years on the force, but this one immediately bothered him. She looked like someone who was trying to disappear, but couldn't. Like she wanted help, but not the kind we could give her. He tried questioning her. She stayed quiet. Refused to give a real name. Refused to sign the intake forms. The moment he mentioned fingerprints, she tried to leave. That's when Detective Reed made a call to have her prints run through the national database. What came back changed everything. Her real name was Jenna McKay, and she had been missing for nearly 3 years. In 2022, she was reported missing from a small town in New Jersey. She was 25 years old, recently divorced, and working at a gas station. One night she never came home. Her car was found abandoned off Route 9, keys still in the ignition. No signs of struggle. No goodbye note. Her ex-husband had an alibi. Her family was heartbroken. Detectives found nothing. The case had gone cold. Until now. And suddenly Jenna, who had disappeared without a trace, was standing in a hospital miles from home, injured, asking for a man who didn't exist. Detective Reed went back to the security footage and had the janitorial team open the trash bin Jenna had used. Inside, buried under hospital waste and paper towels, was a gold necklace, engraved with the initials, CG. Reed took it as evidence. Later that day, a hospital tech searched patient archives out of curiosity, and found something odd. Room 613 hadn't existed for years. That entire wing had been shut down after a small fire and never reopened. Jenna's request wasn't random. She knew this hospital. But how? By day's end, Jenna finally agreed to speak with the police. Her voice was low, measured. She looked exhausted but still guarded. Her story was chilling. "I wasn't mugged. I ran. I ran from a man who's been keeping me in his basement for nearly 3 years." Detective Reed didn't react. He just listened. "His name is Christopher Galloway. I met him online, after my divorce. He said he was a photographer. Invited me to a shoot. I never made it back." The necklace with CG? He used to bring her little gifts from his past life. She said he had 2 phones, multiple aliases, and a disturbing obsession with hospitals. He told her that Mercy Hill was the only place that ever tried to help him. She remembered the name. She remembered the number 613. He talked about it all the time. He said he used to volunteer here, that it's the only place he felt real. He told me, if anything happened to him, I should go to room 613. Room 613. The place that didn't exist anymore. Or so everyone thought. Detective Lorenzo Reed sat across from Jenna McKay in the small, gray-walled interview room of Mercy Hill Hospital. She looked thinner than her photos from 2022, pale skin, sunken eyes, but sharp in her awareness. Her hands trembled as she held the cup of water he'd given her, barely sipping it. "Tell me everything you remember," he said softly. Jenna looked at the two-way mirror, then down at the table. "I was locked in that basement for 984 days. I counted." She spoke slowly, carefully, like someone still afraid of being overheard. Christopher Galloway wasn't just any man, he had planned everything. The photo shoot invite was a trap. He'd drugged her the moment she stepped into his home. When she woke up, she was underground. Her phone was gone. No windows. No clock. Just a small cot, a chain attached to the wall, and cameras pointed at her 24/7. He said the world had already forgotten me, that I belonged to him now. At first, Jenna fought back. Screamed. Threw things. Tried to escape. But every time he punished her. Not with beatings, he was smarter than that. He starved her, turned off the lights for days, played audio recordings of her family crying, begging for her to come home. And then one day he brought her something strange, a hospital badge with the name Dr. Connor Graham. It didn't look real. She asked him who it belonged to. He said it was him. That years ago he used to be someone important, at Mercy Hill. Jenna didn't understand it then. But now, sitting in that very hospital, she realized he had been obsessed with it for years. He even recreated part of room 613 in his basement, down to the hospital bed, the whiteboard, and the scent of antiseptic. He wanted to feel like a doctor again. Like he had purpose. I was just his patient. Back at the hospital, Detective Reed pulled up building blueprints from before the fire that closed down the west wing. And there it was. Room 613. A psychiatric observation room. No one had mentioned this detail. Reed's gut twisted. Why would a man like Galloway be fixated on a psych ward? He wondered aloud. He reached out to HR. After several hours of digging, they found an old staff file under the name Christopher Galloway. He had been a volunteer assistant in the psychiatric unit, working under close supervision for 6 months in 2014. No medical license. No formal training. But he wore the coat. Called himself Dr. G. He was let go for inappropriate behavior. The file didn't specify what that meant. Reed pressed for more and finally tracked down Nina Holt, the former nurse manager. Retired now but sharp as ever. When he mentioned Galloway's name, her voice dropped. I remember him. Creepy. Always hung around the female patients. He said he was writing a book about mental health. But I caught him more than once asking strange, personal questions. We let him go after a patient complained that he'd followed her into the restroom. She paused. You're telling me he's still around? That night, Jenna sat wrapped in a blanket, waiting for a bed in the psych observation unit. Not because she was unstable, but because she had nowhere else to go and the police needed her protected. She told Detective Reed how she escaped. 2 nights ago he got sick. Like really sick. I think it was food poisoning. He didn't come down to the basement for almost 24 hours. That's when I realized something was wrong. He had left one of the basement doors partially unlocked. Maybe he was too weak to check it. Jenna waited until she heard him vomiting upstairs, then made a run for it, barefoot in the dark. She stole cash from his wallet, wrapped her injured hand with paper towels, and walked for nearly 3 miles through the woods. No phone. No clue where she was. But then she saw a road sign, Mercy Hill, 2 miles. She walked the rest of the way. Bloodied. Cold. Determined. I remembered what he said. That if anything ever happened I should go to room 613. I thought maybe someone would understand. The next morning, a SWAT team raided Galloway's house in Mount Joy, a quiet suburb outside Philly. The outside looked normal, gray shutters, a bird feeder on the porch, mail stacked by the door. Inside was another world. The basement was a maze of soundproof panels, cameras, journal entries, and hospital props. Fake charts. 4 stands. A locked cabinet filled with sedatives. In the corner, the metal bed Jenna described with a single leather strap still dangling from the frame. But Galloway was gone. He had vanished. His car was still there. His phone sat on the kitchen counter. But he was nowhere in the house. And according to Jenna, he was too weak to run far. He couldn't even stand the last time I saw him, she told Reed. The officers searched every inch of the house and nearby woods. Dogs were brought in. No luck. It was like he had disappeared into thin air. Later that day, detectives reviewed hours of basement footage. One file stood out. It was dated 2 days before Jenna escaped. Galloway sits in front of the camera, pale and sweating. His voice is shaky. If you're watching this, it means I've failed. She got out. And that's okay. She's free now. But if anyone thinks they can find me, they can't. He coughs. Wipes blood from his lip. I've already made arrangements. I won't be here when they come. He leans closer to the camera, eyes wide. Mercy Hill was never just a hospital. It was the beginning. Room 613 was where everything changed. And then, he smiles. You'll never find me. But you'll wish you hadn't tried. That night, Detective Reed received an anonymous package at his home. Inside was a USB stick. When he plugged it in, it autoplayed a video. It was a live feed. From inside room 613. The room that was supposed to be sealed off. Detective Lorenzo Reed stared at the flickering screen on his laptop, heart pounding. The grainy video on the USB stick was unmistakable. A live feed showing the interior of room 613, the sealed psych ward in Mercy Hill Hospital. The camera angle was low, placed at the far corner of the room. The view showed an empty hospital bed, walls lined with peeling white paint, and a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed every few seconds. But the room had been shut down years ago. What the hell? Reed whispered. He leaned closer. At first there was no sound. Then, a faint cough off-screen. Followed by a dragging noise. Something, or someone, was inside the room. Suddenly a figure stepped into frame. Wearing a white lab coat. Balding. Well, Christopher Galloway. His eyes locked directly into the lens as if he knew exactly where the camera was. He didn't speak. He simply raised a hand, and waved. Reed snapped the laptop shut, breath tight in his chest. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. Room 613 had been gutted during renovations. There was no power. No working surveillance. And yet, the feed was live. Reed called hospital security, then drove to Mercy Hill himself. Within an hour, 3 staff members escorted him to the abandoned West Wing. The halls were dark, musty, filled with old gurneys and broken equipment. Rats scurried behind crates. When they reached the area where room 613 used to be, the wall was sealed with bricks and plaster. But a faint outline of the door was still visible. Reed pointed at it. Tear it down. 2 guards hesitated, then grabbed crowbars and began breaking through the plaster. It took nearly an hour, but when the wall gave way, they uncovered a rusted metal door underneath. No knob. Just a keypad lock. This wasn't on any blueprint, one of the guards whispered. Reed stepped forward. He recognized the keypad model. It was standard hospital security phased out years ago. He punched in the hospital's default emergency override code. Beep. Click. The door creaked open. They entered slowly, flashlights raised. The space inside wasn't the original room 613. It was a reconstruction, eerily similar to the original floor plans but built behind the walls. No windows. A hospital bed. A desk. An old 4-stand with dusty bags. And at the far end, a camera mounted in the exact position as the one from the live feed. Everything matched. Except one thing. The room was empty. No Galloway. No signs of life. Just dust and a faint, sickly sweet smell lingering in the air. Reed moved to the camera and followed the wires. They ran through a hole in the floor, disappearing into the hospital's old cable system. One of the guards bent down and picked something up. A lanyard. Hospital ID badge. The photo was faded, but the name was clear. Dr. Connor Graham. Reed turned it over. On the back was a message handwritten in red ink. You found me. But you're already too late. Back at the precinct, Reed and his team dug deeper into Galloway's past. They couldn't find a single employment record after his dismissal from Mercy Hill. No bank activity. No taxes filed. He had gone completely off the grid. But then one of the junior detectives, Camila, found something chilling. Over the past 6 years, there were 4 other unsolved disappearances within 40 miles of Mount Joy. All women. All between the ages of 23 and 30. All reported missing after responding to freelance job postings. Photographers, stylists, personal assistants. None were ever found. Camila opened a folder and showed Reed the photos. Look at this, she said. This woman, Tracy Alvarez, went missing 2 years ago. Her sister said she was last seen leaving for a meeting with a Dr. Connor Graham. The pattern was unmistakable. Galloway had used the same alias. Same recruitment method. Same psychological traps. He's been doing this a lot longer than we thought, Reed murmured. The team compiled the evidence, but one thing kept nagging at Reed. How was he still operating from inside a hospital that had been partially condemned? That evening, Jenna was transferred from the hospital to a temporary safe house arranged by law enforcement. She was still recovering, both physically and mentally, but insisted on staying involved. Reed visited her with updates. When he showed her the photo of the new room 613, she froze. "That's not the same one from the basement," she said. "But it feels the same. You like to recreate things. Over and over." He said control was everything. As they spoke, Jenna's phone, newly issued by the protection team, buzzed with a message. Unknown number. One sentence. "Why did you come back?" Jenna's hands trembled. Reed grabbed the phone and traced the message, but it had been sent through a spoofed signal, bouncing off multiple towers. Whoever sent it was skilled, and nearby. Later that night, back at Mercy Hill, a janitor was clearing debris in the old wing when he stumbled across a loose panel behind a rusted vent shaft. Inside, he found a shoebox sealed with electrical tape. Inside the box, 4 cassette tapes, each labeled with a name. Tracy, Alana, Marissa, Emily. The names of the missing women. The tapes were turned over to the department and played on an old recorder. Each tape was the same, recordings of women sobbing, begging, whispering for help. Most of the content was inaudible, muffled by static. But on the 4th tape, labeled Emily, a voice was clearly heard. Galloway's voice. "You all think you're real people. But you're not. You're just moments I created. My own little experiments." Then silence. Then a soft laugh. "And I always clean up after myself." At 2:47 a.m., Reed received another alert. The live feed from the USB stick had gone dark for several hours, then suddenly switched back on. But the room was no longer empty. A woman sat on the hospital bed, face bruised, hands in her lap. She looked directly at the camera, eyes wide with terror. Not Jenna. Someone new. She opened her mouth and whispered something. The audio was faint. Reed boosted the volume. The woman's voice came through clearly now. "Please, help me. He's still here." Then the screen cut to black. A single word faded into view. "Welcome back." Detective Reed looked up from his screen, and froze. There, taped to the outside of his apartment door, was a photo. A printed still from the live feed. Of him. Standing in room 613. But he had never been inside. Detective Reed stared at the photograph on his apartment door, pulse racing. The image showed him, same clothes, same stance, standing in room 613. But he had never been there. Not like that. His mind scrambled for an explanation. Photoshop? A deep fake? He yanked the photo down and flipped it over. On the back, someone had written in shaky block letters. "You belong here too." He shut the door behind him, heart pounding. Was someone watching him? Following his every move? His instincts kicked in. He swept the apartment. Under the bed, behind the curtains, inside every drawer. Nothing. Everything looked normal. Except the clock on the wall. It had stopped ticking. 2:47 a.m. The exact time the live feed had returned. The next morning, Reed met with Camila and 2 other officers at the precinct. He placed the photo on the table and recounted everything. "He's escalating," Camila said. "And now it's personal." Reed nodded grimly. They checked local surveillance footage, trying to find out who had left the photo at Reed's door. But the building's cameras had been disabled. A clean software wipe around 2:40 a.m. Just before the photo appeared. Just before the feed returned. There was only one lead left. The tapes. Reed sent the audio from Emily's cassette for analysis. A forensic tech managed to isolate a background noise beneath the woman's whisper. It was faint, rhythmic. A faint hum repeating every 12 seconds. Then a voice, barely audible at first, became clearer when enhanced. "No one leaves. Everyone returns." And then the most chilling part, Reed's name. Whispered slowly. Lorenzo Reed. Reed couldn't shake a disturbing thought. Galloway had recorded tapes, built hidden rooms, manipulated surveillance systems, and possibly had access to officers' personal lives. This wasn't random. It was organized. He dug deeper into his own files. Personnel records. Transfer requests. Even the paperwork from the time he first joined the Mountjoy precinct. He noticed something strange. There was a gap in his own file. 2 whole months were missing. No case assignments, no patrol logs, no activity. But he had no memory of ever taking leave. When he asked Human Resources, they said it was likely a clerical error. But Reed didn't buy it. "No record at all?" he asked. The clerk shook her head. "It's like you disappeared for 60 days and came back like nothing happened." He walked out of the building in a daze. Was this how it started for the other victims? Had he been one of them once, and somehow escaped? At the safe house, Jenna was drawing on a notepad. Simple sketches, rooms, doorways, beds, cables. Reed paid her a visit, bringing her a fresh cup of coffee. She barely looked up. "It's strange," she whispered. "There was always humming. Like electricity. I couldn't see where it came from. Reed froze. 12-second intervals? Jenna blinked. Yes. How did you know? He showed her a still image from the feed, the one of the new woman on the bed. Jenna stared at it for a long moment, then said, "She's in the other room. Not the one I escaped from." There were 2. Reed raised his brows. 2 rooms? No, she said slowly. 2 copies of the same room. One real. One for the feed. Reed's head was spinning. Was this all an elaborate illusion? Or a system of psychological torment? "Did you ever see anyone else there?" he asked. She nodded, eyes darkening. "I saw you." "What?" "Through the mirror." Reed's blood ran cold. That night, Reed sat alone at his desk. He went back through old journals, old phone records, anything to prove where he had been during those 2 missing months. Nothing added up. His phone logs during that period were blank. His GPS history showed no movement. Bank account, no transactions. He was a ghost for 60 days. Then a sudden realization struck him, the scar behind his left ear. He'd noticed it months ago but dismissed it as an old injury. He checked it again now. A small, faded line, surgical in appearance. He reached out to the department's medical examiner and requested a scan. An hour later he sat in the clinic, staring at an X-ray of his own skull. There was a foreign object embedded just behind his ear, tiny, less than a fingernail and metallic. "We'd need to remove it to analyze it," the technician said. "But whatever it is, it was definitely implanted." Reed sat there, silent, numb. Had someone planted surveillance inside him? 2 days later, Reed got a call that made his heart drop. Jenna was missing. She had been moved from one safe house to another for security reasons. During the drive, the escort team reported a minor traffic incident. When they checked the car again, Jenna was gone. No signs of forced exit. No broken windows. Just an empty seatbelt and a piece of paper, folded neatly. Reed rushed to the location. He picked up the note, recognizing the same shaky handwriting from the back of the photo. "She doesn't belong here. You do." He stared into the empty woods around him, panic creeping in. How could she vanish in plain sight? Back at the precinct, Camila revealed a new lead. Using the live feed timestamps, she tracked the electrical signature to a small abandoned property just outside Mount Joy. The land had been purchased 11 years ago under a fake name. When Reed and a team arrived, the house was barely standing. Weeds had overrun the path. Windows shattered. Inside, dust coated every surface. But in the center of the floor was a metal trapdoor. Unlocked. They descended slowly, flashlights raised. The underground chamber was perfectly preserved. Sterile. White walls. One hospital bed. And a camera mounted in the corner. There was something under the bed. A journal. Reed picked it up and flipped through the pages. Handwritten notes. Observations. Sketches. And toward the end, a list. Names. Each victim. Each date. And then the last name on the list. Jenna Harper, recovered. Terminate. Below it, another entry written in larger letters. Lorenzo Reed, return pending. As Reed stood frozen, a loud static buzz erupted from the wall speaker. Then the camera in the corner began to move, slowly turning, pointing, directly at him. The speaker crackled to life with a voice he hadn't heard in years. "Welcome back, Lorenzo." Detective Lorenzo Reed stood frozen in the cold, sterile underground room. The camera on the wall slowly turned toward him, its lens now focused directly on his face. Then came the voice, calm, confident, and haunting. "Welcome back, Lorenzo." His heart pounded in his chest. The voice wasn't just familiar. It was his own. Distorted slightly, slowed down, but unmistakably him. "You've been here before," it continued. "You came back willingly. And now it's time to remember." The lights flickered. Suddenly, the floor under Reed's feet shifted slightly, like a panel moving. A hidden door opened beneath the tiles, revealing a staircase leading even deeper underground. Against every instinct screaming for him to leave, Reed descended. With each step, the air grew colder, heavier. At the bottom, he found a narrow hallway with numbered doors. Each one had a nameplate. He moved past them one by one. Room 601, Catherine Rowe. Room 605, Jenna Harper. Room 613, Lorenzo Reed. His hand hovered over the handle. He took a deep breath and opened it. Inside, it looked exactly like the room in the feed. A hospital bed. For stand. Blank monitor. But on the wall was something new. A mirror, and on the other side of the glass was a live video feed of him standing there now. It wasn't just a room. It was a set. Like a twisted reality show. On the small desk by the bed, there was a tape recorder already playing. This is subject 613. Memory reset complete. Implant stable. Preparing for extraction. Reed's knees weakened. He saw a drawer and opened it. Inside was a folder marked Reed, Do Not Awaken. He flipped through it. Photos of him strapped to the bed. Monitors tracking his vitals. Notes describing emotional breakdowns, memory gaps, strange behaviors. They had been experimenting on him. He had been one of the first. A test subject. And when the operation was exposed and shut down, he was reset and sent back into the real world, unaware of what had been done to him. But someone had restarted the program. Suddenly, a voice came from the door. You were never supposed to come back. Reed spun around. It was Camila. She stepped into the room, holding a small remote device in her hand. Her face was blank, but her eyes looked tired. I didn't want to do this. I told them you were too unstable, that you'd remember. What is this? Reed demanded. Why me? Because you're a survivor, she said softly. You lasted longer than anyone else. They thought they could use you to fix the system. But you broke through. Where's Jenna? He asked. She's gone, Camila replied. They removed her after she started remembering too. Reed lunged toward her, knocking the remote from her hand. It hit the ground and shattered. An alarm blared from the hallway. Red lights flashed. You've triggered the failsafe, she gasped. This whole place will seal in 2 minutes. Reed grabbed the file and sprinted out of the room. He ran past the numbered doors, past the flickering lights, up the stairs, through the main floor of the abandoned house. Just as he reached the front porch, a deep metallic sound echoed behind him, the entire lower level locking shut. He looked back once, then kept running. Weeks later, Lorenzo Reed sat in front of a private camera, recording a statement. If you're watching this, it means I survived. I uncovered a secret system, an underground operation where people were taken, manipulated, and erased. Their names were replaced, their memories wiped, and the world above never even knew they existed. This wasn't just about experiments. It was about control. He paused. I'm not sure if I'll make it much longer, but I needed to share this so someone out there knows the truth. He stared into the camera. You might not believe me, but remember this, if you ever see room 613, don't go inside. Final scene. The screen cuts to black. A final message appears. Room 613 is still active. Viewer discretion is advised. Thank you so much for watching this series. Until next time, stay safe.